The first time I offered to help my mom with the mortgage, I was 26 and just starting to feel like an adult. I'd gotten a job in tech that paid more than anyone in our family had ever dreamed of, and I wanted to give back to the woman who had raised me alone, who had worked double shifts at the nursing home and came home with her hands swollen from lifting patients and scrubbing floors. I remember how proud she looked when I told her I'd be covering the monthly payments, how her tired eyes sparkled with something I hadn't seen in a long time: relief. Back then, the house still felt like home. My old bedroom was intact. The pink and gray comforter I picked out in high school still folded neatly at the foot of the bed. I would visit most Sundays, bring takeout, sit on the couch with my mom as she told me stories about her coworkers and asked about my job. We laughed easily. It felt like I was giving her something real, something solid, not just money, but stability, a way for her to breathe again. I never thought to question the arrangement. My name wasn't on the deed, but I didn't care. It wasn't about legalities. It was about love, about gratitude. When the mortgage company sent emails, they came to me. The payments went out automatically from my account. It became routine, just another thing I did, like brushing my teeth or locking the door at night. Over the years, the house began to change in small, almost imperceptible ways. The living room was repainted a shade of pale yellow I never would have chosen. My old posters and framed photos came down, replaced by canvas prints of serene landscapes and inspirational quotes. "It's time to make the space mine," she said when I asked about it. I nodded. Of course it was. I didn't live there anymore. I had my own apartment a few miles away, filled with books and mismatched furniture and the hum of my own rhythms. Still, I visited. Still, I paid. When the pandemic hit and my salary was temporarily reduced, I cut back on my own expenses so the mortgage wouldn't lapse. My mom lost hours at work. She was afraid. I told her not to worry, that we'd be okay. I picked up groceries. For her, left care packages at her door when she was scared to see anyone. I remember the tears in her voice when she called to say thank you. I held on to that gratitude like a tether, like proof that what I was doing mattered. Then, slowly, things shifted. My visits became shorter, more formal. She started complaining that I didn't call enough, that I seemed distant. I tried to explain that work had been exhausting, that I was dealing with my own stress, but it didn't seem to land. Sometimes I'd show up and there would be someone else there, a friend from church, her new boyfriend, people I didn't know, lounging on the couch, using the bathroom I grew up brushing my teeth in. The worst part was how she started acting like a hostess instead of my mom. She'd tell me to call ahead, even if I was just stopping by to drop off mail or a delivery. Once I came over with flowers and found the door locked, lights off, even though her car was in the driveway. When I called, she said she was busy. It hit me in the chest like something sharp. I stood on the porch with the flowers in my hand, wilting in the heat, and I felt something I couldn't name yet. Something like betrayal. Something like grief. A few weeks later, I got a text. Not a call. Not a face-to-face conversation. A text. "I think it's best if you don't come by unannounced anymore. I need boundaries." I stared at the screen for a long time. My thumb hovered over the reply button, but I didn't know what to say. What do you say to your own mother when she tells you you're no longer welcome in the house you kept afloat, the house you saved? I wanted to scream. I wanted to remind her of the years I'd quietly drained my bank account to keep that roof over her head. I wanted to ask if she remembered the cold winters when I'd paid the heating bill without telling her, just to make sure she was warm. But instead, I said nothing. I stared at the text until the words blurred, and then I put my phone down and sat in silence, trying to understand how everything had shifted so far without me noticing. We didn't speak for 2 weeks. She didn't reach out, and neither did I. I was afraid of what I might hear, afraid that if I asked for an explanation, it would only make it worse. Then, on a random Tuesday afternoon, I got another message. "I think we need to talk." I stared at the message for a long time, the words burning on my screen like they had a pulse. "I think we need to talk." It didn't say where or when. It didn't say what about. But I knew. I felt it settle in my chest like a storm cloud. I replied, with a single word, "Okay." She invited me over the next day. Her tone on the phone was calm but distant, like someone preparing to deliver news they'd already rehearsed in their head too many times. My stomach twisted with every hour that passed until the visit. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe an apology. Maybe some explanation that would untangle all the knots in my chest. When I arrived, the door was already open. I stepped inside, and it didn't feel like stepping into my childhood home. The air smelled different, like lemon oil and lavender, too clean, too perfect. My pictures were gone from the wall in the hallway. The old family photos I'd grown up with had been replaced by generic framed art you could buy in a department store. She was sitting at the kitchen table, hands folded neatly in front of her, a cup of tea steaming untouched beside her. I noticed right away how she didn't get up to hug me. "Hi," I said softly. "Hi," she said back. There was a long silence, the kind that stretches so tight it feels like it might snap and cut both people. "I've been thinking a lot lately," she began, eyes focused not on me but on the wooden grain of the table. "About boundaries, about space, about how relationships change." I nodded slowly, waiting. "I appreciate everything you've done," she said. "You've helped me, in ways I can't even begin to repay." Her voice trembled slightly, but she kept her expression composed, controlled. "But I need you to understand that this is my home. I need to feel like it's mine, completely mine." I swallowed hard. "It is yours," I said. "I never tried to take that away from you." She looked at me then, really looked. Her eyes were tired, older than I remembered, but something else was there too, defensiveness, maybe even guilt. "It doesn't feel like it sometimes," she said. "You pay for it. You always have. It makes me feel like a guest in my own space." I felt the blood drain from my face. "But I did that for you," I whispered. "So you'd never have to worry. So you could feel safe." "I know," she said, and for the first time her voice cracked. "I know, and I'm grateful, I am. But the more you give, the more I feel like I owe. And that debt, it hangs over me. I can't breathe in this house anymore without feeling it. I couldn't speak." Her words felt like blades, not because they were cruel, but because they were real. Because they rewrote everything I thought I knew. "So you're saying you don't want my help anymore?" I asked quietly. She took a deep breath. "I'm saying I want to refinance. Take over the mortgage myself. I've already started looking into it. I should have done it a long time ago." "But you couldn't afford it then," I said, my voice rising. "And if something happens, if you lose hours again, or get sick, what happens then?" She shook her head. "I'll figure it out. I need to figure it out. I need this house to feel like mine again, and I need to be the one who keeps it." I felt like I was falling. Every Sunday visit, every automatic payment, every grocery run, they were all dissolving into something else, being reinterpreted, rewritten. I had thought I was giving her freedom, but maybe I was giving her a gilded cage. "I never wanted you to feel like you owed me," I said. "I know," she whispered. "But I do." The silence returned, heavier now, thick with everything. Neither of us could say. I just thought. I began, then stopped. "I thought this house was ours. I thought it would always be a place where I belonged." Her eyes softened. "You'll always belong in my life. But I need this house to be mine. I need space. And maybe that means not coming by unless we talk first. I need that boundary. Please try to understand." I wanted to argue. I wanted to beg. But I also knew that if I loved her the way I said I did, I had to let her choose what made her feel whole, even if it hurt. So I nodded. Once, slowly. "Okay," I said. "I understand." I stood, heartbreaking in quiet, invisible ways. She didn't stop me. She didn't reach for me. I walked out of the house I'd helped keep alive for nearly a decade, and for the first time I realized it wasn't my home anymore. Maybe it never had been. The days after that conversation moved like fog, thick, slow, muffled. I kept thinking it would hit me all at once, like a scream or a slammed door, but instead it came in pieces. I would find myself reaching for my phone to text her about a new show or something funny I saw on the street, and then I'd stop halfway, my hand frozen, remembering that we weren't speaking like we used to. That we couldn't. I kept paying the mortgage for a little while after that meeting. It felt like inertia, like some part of me still clinging to the idea that things would settle, that she'd change her mind. But then the refinance paperwork came in the mail, addressed to her, and I knew it was real. There was a strange relief buried in the heartbreak. Finally, I wasn't responsible anymore. But with that relief came a hollowness I wasn't prepared for. The house had been more than bricks and beams. It had been a symbol of love, of sacrifice, of holding each other up. Without it, something inside me began to unravel. She stopped, inviting me over entirely after that. She didn't say it out loud, but her silences became boundaries all on their own. I told myself I understood, but deep down, I felt exiled from something sacred. Not just the house, but her, my mother, the one who used to kiss my scraped knees and whisper prayers into the dark when we had no heat. There were still text messages, brief and polite. Happy birthday. Hope work is going well. Stay safe. But they were empty shells of what we used to be. I responded every time, carefully, cautiously, not wanting to push. One evening, I drove past the house without meaning to. I hadn't been in that part of town in months, and suddenly, there it was, lit from within, glowing like a warm memory I wasn't allowed to touch. There were new wind chimes hanging on the porch. The roses we'd planted together when I was 10 were gone, replaced by decorative stones and a manicured hedge. I parked across the street and just stared at it. The windows were open. I could hear soft jazz floating out into the night. It was peaceful, beautiful even, but it didn't feel like my mother's home anymore. It felt like a stranger's. A man came out and stood on the porch, her boyfriend, I assumed. I'd only met him once, in passing, before all this began. He didn't see me, and I didn't want him to. I stayed in my car, watching, something painful swelling in my throat. She came out a few minutes later. They laughed about something. She touched his arm. She looked happy. I wanted to be happy for her. I told myself I should be. But instead, I sat there, frozen, tears leaking quietly down my face, as I watched the woman who had once been the center of my world now live a life I wasn't part of. When I finally drove away, it felt like a funeral. Quiet, private, invisible. I mourned something no one else could see. I started therapy not long after. I didn't know where else to put all the pain, the confusion, the resentment I hated admitting I had. My therapist asked me once gently, "Did you ever talk to her about what you needed?" I blinked at her like she'd spoken a different language. "It wasn't about me," I said. "It was about helping her." She nodded. "But it became about you too, whether you meant it to or not." And she was right. I had needed something. Maybe not a thank you. Maybe not praise. But connection. Recognition. A place in her world. I tried writing my mom a letter, just to say the things I couldn't fit into a text, couldn't speak over the phone. I poured my heart into it. I told her how proud I was of her, how much I still loved her, how I missed her. I told her that I understood, even if it still hurt. I never sent it. It sits in the drawer of my desk, folded into an envelope that I sealed and addressed, but never stamped. There are days when I think about mailing it, and there are days when I don't. But no matter how many days pass, there's still a part of me that parks outside that house in my mind. Still watching, still waiting. Months passed, seasons shifted, the world spun forward, but something in me remained tethered to that invisible line stretching between who we had been and what we had become. I tried to move on. I filled my time with work, with friends, with distractions that dulled the sharp ache that came whenever I thought of her, of the house, of what it had once meant. I didn't tell anyone the full story. Not at first. People knew I'd been helping my mom financially, knew we were going through something, but I couldn't bring myself to say the words aloud. She told me I couldn't come home. Because that's what it was, at the heart of it. Not just a locked door, not just a boundary, but a severing of something sacred. A quiet, unspoken exile. The holidays were the hardest. That first Thanksgiving, I waited for the invitation that never came. I cooked a small meal alone in my apartment, stuffing and mashed potatoes and a turkey breast that barely took an hour. I poured a glass of wine and sat at the table, blinking back tears I told myself were from the onions. I texted her. Happy Thanksgiving. I hope it's a good one. She replied a few hours later. You too. Take care. No. I miss you. No. Wish you were here. Just 6 words. Enough to keep the door cracked, not enough to let me in. Christmas came. I mailed her a gift card and a handwritten card, careful and neat. She sent a thank you message with a little heart emoji, like she was talking to a distant acquaintance, not the child who used to sleep on her chest during thunderstorms. I went on dates. I tried therapy. I made new memories. But there was always that shadow in the background, the house, the mortgage, the silence between us. Then one day in spring, I got a call. It was short, direct. Her voice was tired. I'm in the hospital, she said. It's nothing serious, just a scare, but I thought you should know. I dropped everything. I didn't ask questions. I just went. The hospital was cold and fluorescent, and humming with the low noise of machines and quiet conversations. I found her in a small room, wearing a paper gown, IV in her arm. Her face was pale, her hair pulled back. She looked small in a way that undid me. She smiled when she saw me. Not a big smile, but enough to break something inside me. You didn't have to come, she said. Don't be ridiculous, I whispered, pulling a chair close. Of course I did. We didn't talk about the house. Not then. Not yet. She told me it was her heart, nothing deadly, but enough to scare her. She talked about the doctors, the nurses, the food. I listened, nodding, watching the way her fingers trembled just slightly against the blanket. And in that sterile, humming room, with no mortgage, no boundaries, no locked doors between us, I remembered what it felt like to just be her child again. Before I left that night, she reached for my hand. Her skin was warm, softer than I remembered. She didn't say thank you. She didn't say sorry, but she didn't need to. The squeeze of her fingers said more than either of us could. She got better. Slowly, she went home. I didn't visit right away. I waited. Waited to see if she'd invite me, if she'd reach out, if the walls would shift. And weeks later, she did. A simple message. Do you want to come by for tea this weekend? I got those little cookies you like. I stared at it for a long time, and I cried. Not because the pain was gone, not because things were fixed, but because the door was open again. Because there was still a chance. I went. And the house didn't feel the same. It never would. But her eyes did. We sat on the porch, sipping tea, the wind chimes dancing in the breeze. There were gaps in our conversation, things left unsaid, histories we couldn't rewrite. But there was also laughter. There was memory. There was hope. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if we'll ever go back to what we were. But I do know this. Sometimes love isn't loud. Sometimes it's a quiet return, a small invitation, a shared cookie on a sunny porch, and sometimes, after all the hurt, that's enough.